Oh, so I was watching a film 2 days ago. It was about some child who was actually his parents. They weren't making much money. His dad was working as a truck driver, and his mother was she was unemployed. And this kid, he didn't even have the basic utensils required to go to school. And every day he was pretty much living depressed without knowing what he was going to do with his life.
It's
And
basically every ad, right? I mean, like the ads of poverty, they promote this idea of, not necessarily promote it, but they try to tell you that the current situation, why it's so bad.
It's like
People
World Vision, like all the time. World Vision. What else do you have? UNICEF, all that kind of
I
stuff.
mean, I kind of want to
saw it
hear
on Plus
Ilya's
before.
movie. Did it end on? Well, how did it end?
Well,
Was
it
him
kind
as an adult or
of
him as a
ended
child?
like Brave New World. It kind of let Lee unravel the message by herself. It was pretty vague ending. You had many, you could interpret it in many ways, but the clear message that it was conveying was really, I thought, about how so many people are living in poverty, especially in America. And that was an American film, actually.
That reminds me of how I was watching. Have you seen the Joe Rogan podcast?
Which one?
The one where he introduces Bernie Sanders and they were talking about the universal basic income.
Universal Basic Income.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. No.
Oh, it's actually interesting. They propose that everyone should have a set income in poverty. Yeah. Do you have any inputs on that?
Oh yeah, I know Universal Basic Income. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, I actually know a bit of. I watched a Kurzgesagt video on it.
Yeah.
Can you give it a
It's
little
like-
introduction?
So Universal Basic Income is kind of like the idea that everyone should have some sort of money, a basic salary.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
No
enough
matter
to
what
live.
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should it depend on where you live, though, whether or you have a house, whether or not you have some property with?
Well, isn't that the point of it? For
yeah,
people who are in
it's
poverty
the-
and
yeah.
don't have homes, they should get the universal basic income. Of course, it shouldn't
Yeah.
have to do with the home you live in, because if it does, then what's the point of having it?
No, I think you can give it to people with homes because they're struggling. If let's say,
Yeah.
you know, the 2008 global financial crisis, right?
All people,
Yeah, no, but I'm
all
talking about people who
should have
don't
a right
have
to
homes.
this.
Everyone
People
should.
People who don't
no,
have
I don't.
a-
Yeah, I think people who are struggling to pay off their payments, and that's an idea. Struggling
It
to
kind
pay
of
off and they're
depends on two
homeless.
different viewpoints, though, whether or not we're looking at it economically, like politically, or should we look at it more morally? If morally, then obviously the point would be everyone should have a basic incomes. And however, politically or economically, in order to save money so that people can actually do more things, it's better to cut the basic income for some people,
I mean, I don't think.
so for more opportunities to happen with other people.
But the idea is that when you do give people money, let's say with the COVID situation right now, when you give them money, it's an injection, right?
Yeah.
They can spend more, right? It's
Injection
something
in the
like
economy.
Yeah,
So you're-
because they're gonna
creating
either
inflation.
save it. No, they're not printing any more money. They're not spending a ton on
Okay.
different
They're
things.
just
They're
distributing.
giving it,
Yeah.
they're giving it to the people and they spend it. If you're homeless, what are you gonna do with? Are you gonna save $300? You can't save it. You have to spend it
Yeah.
to at least meet up those basic needs. So it's not like they're losing any money.
But universal basic
Economic-
income, it can be used in many wrong ways. So for instance, so many homeless people, they
Yeah.
use it on drugs and stuff. But actually,
yeah,
I
that's
think
kind
there's
of a counter argument towards it as well.
But
Continue.
I think that's a terrible counter argument. That's just a way for people who are just blatantly against it for no good reason to say something random, because the argument can easily be countered. You can
How?
easily have like different institutions such as rehabilitation which prevent them from using this stuff on.
Well,
This
then,
brings in
drug
the point,
use.
though. I think it brings in the point that should it really be a universal basic income, or should it be more of a universal basic institution where everyone gets some kind of providence on learning, some kind of providence on
yeah,
health? I guess we have healthcare, but
but a stronger
providence
healthcare.
on psychology, like psychologists, in order to help you with your mental condition.
Do you think there should be a universal institution that looks after everyone in the world, or country-based, or
It should be universal because countries, lots of them.
No,
are
you can't do
already-
universal.
It's basically impossible to be universal.
The idea
but,
is that
like country-based would be good.
the people aren't going to be
Universal would be a
convinced
good
to
idea,
spend
but
money
it's
on
hard.
other countries when they have problems in their own. Let's say, for instance, Australia, right? You start off with the idea of a universal basic income. I think the idea is that you don't need income, you need resources. More homeless shelters, for example. Giving people clothing so that they can have a job interview, so they can get right back into the economy. You can give them money, obviously, to help, like, back up what they need to just get fit back into the economy. But
Yeah. So
it's
providing
impossible.
the help they need, not the help
Yeah.
we think they need.
Because let's say with money you can spend on drugs, yeah, and it's just I don't think it's very safe when you can spend that money on like homeless shelter, food,
Yeah.
and the idea you can just use food coupons.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think to summarize what we're saying right now, universal income is good to have, but to make sure it's
Effective.
and only its pros are in action and not its cons. We need to have extra precautions such as educational institutions. Like for instance, for adoption, we have
Hold on.
like
Do you think that with educational institutions, do you think poverty would even exist? Do you think there would even be a
no,
need
but I'm not
for the
talking about new
universal
schools. I'm
basic
talking
income?
about little places like rehabilitation for these kind of people.
But that's not educational institution.
No, okay, I use my wording wrong. But
We
an
should, yeah,
institution,
I think it's a good point to branch off into what should be considered as part of the universal basic income if we do have one. Universal basic um, institutions.
because
Well,
here's
yeah,
the thing:
we
if
can
you have
make
a
that a thing,
problem,
yeah.
you can't just keep on laying off and not ignoring all
Pretending-
these
yeah,
issues.
yeah.
You can't just keep on saying everything's wrong. Okay, that's just what politicians
But the
do.
government
This-
already offers free education, and if you don't have any money, they can pay for, let's say, school trips
You
or
think
whatever. The government does that.
homeless 50-year-old man would want to go back to school.
No, that's not my point. When you say educational, I'm thinking of children because they're the future. They need that help to get into some sort of a job later on.
Yeah, but the
with an
issues will
older
still be
person,
forgotten. 'Cause
there's
these homeless
obviously a
people-
reason why they're there.
These homeless people, they'll continue making children, and these children are going to be injected into this system of
Poverty cycle.
Yeah.
By the way, on the point of making kids, our good friend Conrad, I'd like to make a mention to him. Basically, in regards to your point about the cons, he said that in South Africa, basically, it's quite common that for the lower caste, not Africans,
Yes.
black people, I guess, colored folk. He was basically saying they were almost incentivized to having more kids because they would get like the equivalent of social security or whatever that was in South Africa, and they would basically just have more kids and then I guess kill the kid or just send it off after a short while. And I think we definitely need some more precautions, or maybe not
Yeah.
precautions, maybe some set of standards to I guess restrict this from happening, some regulation, because
We
obviously
already do
moral
have that
right
in
for
Australia.
people.
We
Yeah.
So
already
this
do.
also goes back,
They
I mean-
pay you by child, but they do it weekly. It's not like they're going to give you money straight up. So with South Africa, that's just
Wait,
poor government policy.
The-
It doesn't really.
yeah, I just wanted to say, in some Islamic countries, there's a, I guess, obviously interest, like the concept of interest, it's not very halal.
It's not allowed.
For those asking, it's basically just forbidden in the religion. And what a concept that's emerged is, well, I mean, ideally, you would use the profits you gain from investment, I guess, for some capital good of your own, like such as, I guess, I don't know. Let's say a very simplistic thing. We'll say a car. So the thing is, these Islamic banks, they don't give you like money. They don't put the money into your bank account. What they do is, in relation to your point, Ilya, they would honestly just loan you off the car, and then you would, I guess, pay them off over time, and that's probably, I guess, a better way to deal with the issue.
So yeah, basically, I think that instead of having money, I think that another really useful way of giving homeless people money and getting them out of poverty shouldn't just be money. We should have goods, as Ian was saying, goods such as homes. We should instead, like, why can't we just give them homes? We have so much land. Why can't
It's
we
like
just?
this
That doesn't
stupid
work.
meme where like
What do you mean? This
you're
like,
homeless,
what-
just get a home.
No, that has nothing to do with it. The government can donate homes, because instead of giving money and ruining the economy, which is so precious for the nation, why can't we use all this land that we have and just donate some
Yeah,
to
but then
homeless people?
that leads to us destroying natural habitats that
No,
we have.
homes that were like, instead of having so many just random homes and
Like
having
sharing homes, you mean, kind of.
yeah, like we have
That's
so
a
many
homeless
homeless
shelter. You may
shelters.
as well invest in homeless
Yeah, well,
shelters.
homeless shelters. Yeah, we may as well invest in homeless shelters.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Homeless shelters should have more
Not
emphasis
just
put
homeless
on.
I
shelters,
honestly
but like
thi-
suits, or like something to prepare someone for a job interview.
Yeah.
How are they
But
going to get a
that's-
job if they
it's
look like
temporary.
raggedy clothes and
They're
everything?
temporary.
Education.
Hmm?
Yeah.
And we should actually. Why don't we just look at some countries which have no poverty? Okay, Switzerland has no homeless people. One of the reasons is Switzerland doesn't have any homeless people. Do you
Well,
guys
it does have. It just
It
has a
does.
very
barely,
low amount.
very low.
Very
That's
low.
what I'm
But so
talking
does
about.
Australia. It has a very low amount.
Well,
Wait, let's discuss why though. I think it's a good idea to progress to
the
why.
reason that these nations might have such low homeless levels is because of universal basic income. However, this isn't enough to cut it. If we really want to finish it, the one way we can prevent, firstly, future generations from becoming homeless, kind of like preventing this population from proliferating, I think it's best to having better education. Because education right now, this goes
Yeah.
on to another issue. Education right now, I think we can all admit it pretty much is not education. This is sort of like an educational malpractice. It's sort of like what forcing information into people's heads, and this information comes in
We can
facts
discuss
such as
this,
biology.
Yeah, no, but the
What
thing
I'm-
is,
what I'm saying,
no, but the thing
what
is
I'm
with
saying is,
education,
listen,
you
what I'm
need
saying-
to give the people.
No, what I'm saying is that this isn't proper education. If it was education, people would know how to deal with their lives.
Yeah,
Because-
I see.
Yeah.
Because if it was, then a homeless man should be able to use his knowledge or critical thinking abilities or whatever he was meant to learn from school to get out of poverty. I mean, he can easily do that. Just look at YouTube, all these £1 into $10,000 challenges. They don't get to $10,000, but they make some money. Why don't homeless people do that? It's because they don't motivated. They don't learn these skills through school.
I don't think it's not motivation. It's they have an actual illness.
Not
Some
all
of
of them.
some of them are battling with an addiction. No, but
Yeah, addiction and
98%
stuff.
of them struggling with an addiction, or they're just mental illness.
Yeah.
You can't. So
Well,
what
exactly.
The
This
point
comes from
is
school.
that
Where do they start? Where did the mental illness start?
mental illness is
think
something
the-
generally to do with the early childhood.
It's a cycle. It's
Yeah,
a
It's
cycle.
about
cycle.
education.
Drug
School can
addiction,
fix
It's
that.
not
drug
really
addiction
education.
School
and
can
mental
fix
illness
that.
are
It's a way of
It's the
fixing it.
parents who bring that upon them.
Well, school can fix that quite
And that-
easily.
yeah.
School can fix that through thick mental
doesn't
exercise.
necessarily
The
can
government
fix that.
can
It's a
fix that
kind of
easily as
cycle.
well,
Yeah.
because the government can just
If only they could
offer
invest.
them support, psychiatric help, homeless shelters, getting them back into a job. You know,
This
Well,
can
now
also
it's not
we're
going to
just
help.
considering-
Fixing
now we're
education
kind of
only isn't
considering,
going to fix anything. First,
basic, universal basic income as providing, only providing for the homeless. But universal basic income should provide a little more than that. That's why it was a kind of designed to be just giving money, because so therefore everyone can get some kind of basic support from the government for them to be able to live.
yeah, but the thing is, with an increase in income itself, you're going to see a rise in prices for goods and services. I believe you're giving. Let's say you don't just give it to homeless people; you give it to the normal average Australian.
Why would
can-
you give to the normal average Australian?
I mean, that's the idea of the universal basic income.
Yeah.
Not even just someone who's struggling.
Yeah.
The fact that the government's putting more money means they're having less savings in their account. Remember how we learned in our internship that Australia is one of the richest
What
governments in the world?
internship?
The one in year 10.
You had an internship in year 10.
Everyone did.
Yeah, except
The
you.
one for a week. We
So-
learned
Oh,
that
yeah, that-
Australia
What
was
did you
one of
do
the
in
richest.
that week?
We were just learning about accounting, but in that week we learned that Australia is one of the richest governments in the world. And due to Corona, they were able to use that savings they had, that
Yeah,
massive
that's
savings,
incredible.
to help.
Are we in a
Now-
deficit by a trillion?
No,
That's America.
that's America.
Yeah.
We're also in a deficit though.
No. We're one of the best countries. We don't. No.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a reason we managed to bounce back to like have like the same or at least close to the same unemployment rate that we had before the pandemic.
Yeah, we're actually in a really good situation.
I also want to bring up a couple of things, two questions. Firstly, in regards to utilizing the land, the problem is so many homeless people. I know. I feel like yeah.
So there was actually a project like this before. They actually had this project, I think it was by Campbelltown, where they built a bunch of shelters for people who are homeless or struggling.
Well, I was talking about like Alice Springs, like literally in the middle of the.
Okay, well,
the-
I was saying they
Think
did
about
this.
like this,
I'm
okay?
just saying though, they've done this already, where they built homes for them, and it turns out it just became worse for the children.
Can we reset the
and it
entire
became a drug
thing?
center.
Cause you get
Can we
places
reset this
like
entire
Claymore.
argument? Can we
You get-
reset
Yeah,
this entire
yeah,
argument?
that's it.
Wait.
Claymore. That was the place I was
Can-
going to talk about Ilya's arguments with bringing a person in from the streets.
No, that's not my argument. You didn't listen to what I said, guys. Okay, shut up.
Like supporting them,
No,
not necessarily
I'm not
bringing
saying,
a person
think about
in.
it. If you could do that, you would change them. Now, if we could recreate the situation on a larger level, what would that be like? What about mathematics?
Which
When
is
you're
what I-
solving a
which is what I-
problem,
which is what I
I-
said.
okay.
Like about if governments initiate this kind of idea into entire thing to include what should be included in a quotation universal basic income.
I just want to
Well,
add
what about
though
a
that they
mathematics
already
problem?
have this resources, governments. They already have all of this set up for homeless
No,
people. They just don't
this isn't-
have a way to advertise it. Look, if
this
you
isn't
never
just
knew-
advertising. We need to stop looking at branding
No,
and
no, it's not.
academic
I'm
stuff.
not talking about
We need to
advertising
think-
it like that.
All right,
though.
let's let
We
Eli
need,
continue first.
we
and
need
then
our stuff to be more potent. We need to have more effect. We can't just take them in and be like, yeah, there's your room. Yeah, just be one of the other 1,000 people sitting in this 1,000 rooms apartment. After a month, we'll kick you out. How
Yeah.
depressing would you feel?
Yeah, that's
What
sad.
if you had someone who would be there with you every day, someone on a different level? Like, we can't just be suited with everything being paper to paper. We need. Okay, actually, let me just say, think about me and my friends in this in school we made the STEM club, and in the STEM club
It's not a STEM club, it's the Archimedean group.
We made the STEM club, and in the STEM club we're working on this project, and we have put plans into every meeting, but the meetings never go as planned. However, when they do go as planned, we get stuff done, but never on the real good level to make good change with this club. And this is what's going on with homeless people.
Yeah.
We're not putting enough
But,
attention into them because we think
Clubs are
that
great.
coming up with an idea for this entire problem will just solve it. This doesn't mean like you need passion. You know, Tony was telling me 2 days ago about the people who came together to solve the AIDS crisis. They wrote a paper on research. They were normal people.
It was interesting.
They spent
It was
1 to 2
actually pretty
years
cool.
researching and made it decreased AIDS death by 200%. Now, what if people had passion for homeless people? Imagine how much of a difference we need. We need more humanity in this problem. We don't need more money and taxes. We need humanity to solve this problem. This includes passion.
So last time, I think Ilya's point would be that we should be more humane in the sort of compensation we provide to everyone, and making it more equally distributed, focusing on the equity to provide people who have disadvantages more advantages. So what would you say is the level of humaneness we should provide? Like, what would be the line? What kind of compensation are possible and what shouldn't be?
Yeah. What's your opinion on that, Ilya?
Well, if you ask me, I think that we need to stop looking at this like some normal democratical issue. We need to start looking at this like a moral issue. Like, for instance, if you have a child and your child gets lost, you're not gonna create an initiative with a bunch of government funding for some random people to try and find your kid. You're not going to spend thousands of... No, they don't do it. You're not going to get out a piece of paper and a nice plan and calmly sit down on your bench saying, look at how good this plan's going to turn out. You're going to be passionate about what you're doing. Not passionate might not be the word, but you're going to be delved in what you... Shut up. You're gonna want to find your child no matter what it takes, okay? Now we need to start treating this issue like that. We need to start treating it like some...
And how do you think we should hold people accountable for not being humane?
I don't.
What do you mean,
I don't think
hold
it's
them
people.
accountable?
So just then to talk about it, you're just talking about people. Are you talking about governments or people that should
Just
be held
a
accountable?
community. We need to solve this problem.
Community.
Well, that takes different things because I don't know if a government can ever possibly do that because...
Then you agree
I
that
guess-
some responsibility.
So like local government then.
Yes,
Is that-
local governments, I guess, doing charitable work, maybe even charities. Then you start doing things for passion.
This is more about passion. How do you bring up passion? How do you show passion then for this kind of an issue?
I don't think showing passion is necessarily the issue. The issue is in what could be defined as passion. Like, if you say that if you have a government initiative and doing something, the passion is gone. How is that
No,
necessary?
it's not passion. No, I think a solution to this problem is passion. You think
Yeah,
the
I
government is like head over the tails trying to fix all this problem? No, the government's
But
not.
imagine if, suppose a government official's children got missing. Wouldn't they host a government initiative and wouldn't they have the
That'll
same
just
passion?
be something they'll do. They'll put all the focus or the time of their work into that, and then they'll do even more. They're not just gonna make some initiative and call it a day. They're gonna do more than that.
Well then leading off with the charity work should then be let's say private funded charities be a thing, or should it all be government kind of charities, if that makes sense? Like, should the government so my question was then, is this going to be more, should we make it more of a government funded charity rather than private, since we know that private charities usually most of the money just goes up to the owners of the charity, let's say.
Nah, we need to start solving this issue. It should be something that the community solve. Okay, I can't give out what the problem is, but I'm saying this problem needs passion. So Tony, why didn't you talk to me about the AIDS thing? You told me yesterday. Tell us.
It was a volunteer project quite a few years ago. Obviously, I wasn't involved, but it's quite a successful story in the community that actually came together to overcome an issue.
So, this community, they came together, just normal people. They came together and they found a solution to AIDS. It wasn't a solution, but it would decrease the death rate by 200%, right?
Yeah, it was quite incredible.
It was incredible. These are normal people, believe it or not. It's as crazy as it sounds. And I believe that if they can do that, then we can reduce homelessness, which is, in fact, I think, a much easier issue than AIDS, which is a little disease. Now, I think
it's not a little disease.
I said literal disease, not literal
disease.
Literal.
Alright, so the thing is, that no.
Wait, leave it.
No, I think that's a great example of a community coming together just out of their own needs and necessities in order to improve a current condition, right? Like
Yeah.
They started off as a volunteering group. I mean, not volunteering, a protest group, and then they encouraged themselves to be, and then they encouraged themselves, and eventually were able to gain research and knowledge in order to actually develop a vaccine or something to decrease the rate by about 200%.
But rather than stopping homelessness right now as a current issue, we need to stop it at its roots. And something that is often brought up is colleges, right? Let's say an example, in American colleges, it is pretty expensive. No one wants to spend $6,000 USD a year to go to a university, and these kinds of people, they don't want it.
6,000?
It's USD, and this
You
is
mean
like
60,000?
This is
Yeah, like
no,
it's like
I'm not talking about Ivy League.
I pay 6,000.
No, I'm not talking about Ivy League schools or anything. Not these top. No, I'm just talking about general, easy to access, supposed to be schools.
Yeah.
And something we should and what we should be trying to do is maybe something that is often brought up is make these colleges free, because these homeless people, they don't. When you get to university, like in our schools, teachers would offer help. There would be counselors. There would be some sort of formal help that would help you get through these kinds of mental issues that you were going through, right?
Yeah, and the only help they have now is a very selective financial help that only supported like a few people out of the whole school, the scholarships. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add because obviously some of these kids that end up going into these colleges, or that we want to go into these colleges, some of them have come from very hugely poverty-stricken backgrounds, and so the only thing that I would think would hinder this idea would be maybe if they were just unsuitable for that style of study in itself, which raises another question: should we include trade-based, skill-based, I guess apprenticeships or degrees, stuff like that, just to help them out? What do you guys think?
That's true, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem we can solve. I mean,
Free colleges.
I mean we can, but that's not. I guess
this
that's
just
a
goes
government
back to the
thing.
question: should free colleges be considered part of a providence for everyone, primary
Is
school
that
and
really
high
a
school
big issue,
education?
though?
No, but
Should they
thinking
be
about it,
considered
like
as
our
providers?
high school, for instance, they provide counseling, they provide help. Although it may not be the best, they show you that there is resources that you can access for free outside of school.
Yeah.
And if we could kind of integrate that with universities, let's say public ones, so that those who can't afford it, it doesn't have to be private.
Can I also?
So this would resolve, in some ways, resolve the disadvantaged issue where people know what kind of support they can
Yeah.
get.
I think, if you give them, whoever really works hard to get where they are, even if it's not a really high school and they can't get into a public university or college, should be able to provide that help. I think it's a government's kind of job.
I wanted to bring in maybe perhaps the perspective of the colleges in themselves. I mean, if they're bringing in so many kids who are poor and dropouts from high school, I mean, surely from their perspective, they would be reluctant, because I mean it's gonna affect their, I guess, ranking. It's gonna affect their prestige. It's gonna affect their reputation. So from their perspective, there's gonna have to be a higher sort of framework and resolution for just the employment of the concept in itself.
Those are mostly looked at as private universities where the rankings are more important. I think government universities or colleges should more or less provide skills they could use later on to get a job.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Universities, you're there for a higher academic level, while these kind of public colleges sponsored by the government is just more to provide you with the skills to get a job.
And that can also prevent homelessness. People who come from poor, what I was saying, that prevents homelessness. People who come from poor families.
But then
definitely reduces.
It reduces it, obviously.
Yeah.
But that eventually that can reduce stuff, like in biology, how evolution works. It's a slow process. Eventually, this will grow out itself.
Free colleges will provide these kinds of services, right? Although it won't immediately stop homelessness, it will have a long-term effect where it will lower it. And although it's not the only initiative we could do, it certainly is a good one. This kind of brings in the topic of have you seen Joe Biden's plan for 3 years of free community
What is
college.
it? I want to see.
Yeah, it's I think it was $2 trillion is what the government is
What
going to
about
spend.
prerequisites? Don't you need like educational prerequisites? How on earth is a homeless guy supposed to fulfill those knowledge?
No, it's high school students.
Yeah, SAT
Okay,
and stuff.
No, it's college. We're gonna make it so that not we
Community college.
community
Yeah.
college. It's
You
supposed to
don't
give
need
you
anything.
these. No, you still
Community
need high
college.
school.
Yeah, but what? Some people can't even access high school.
That's you
That's
make high school compulsory and free.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is exactly. High school is
But
compulsory.
what's,
It's supposed to-
what's,
it's
what's the
commercial.
probability
No.
of that ever happening? Like, you,
It is free and compulsory in Australia.
yeah,
And if you provide them with the community,
isn't America in a
is,
deficit? How on earth are they gonna?
yeah. Well, my point is they did $2 trillion, and a lot of people have a problem with that because they're saying it's our taxpayer money, and that's an argument we could bring in from the other side, a different
Like,
perspective.
for education.
This is for free education for
So they're
community
saying.
colleges.
So they're saying that 16% on military funds is alright. So shooting freaking Syrians in the head is better than.
$600 billion a year. Yeah, but the
What?
it's
That's
no, they
bullcrap.
spend $600 billion a year on their military. The $16 trillion in
How is that an issue in education?
Sure, maybe they just
No,
like their
and they also
defenses
have
more.
1.6 million. $1.6 trillion in student
realize
loans.
if
There
they
was
were
that
just-
it?
Can I actually?
let's see,
can I-
Yeah,
can I
there
say-
was a lot of.
Can I ask what the government focus would be, like, if they decide to make these community colleges and stuff free? Like, are they looking at blue collar employment, trade jobs, or like potentially like skilling them in terms of like office or other like technological roles?
I think you want to make it
Wait, what was your question? Just repeat it again, sir.
So the question was basically whether or not whether the government focus should be skilling the workforce, or like at least the entrance into the community college with blue collar employment such as trades and etc., or white collar such as office roles, and I guess the things you would expect from higher education students. Tony, do you have anything to add?
sure. I think with blue college. Okay, I kind of just lost my train of thought here.
Because I mean, obviously,
So, like, we gotta present the issue and then present why we need a solution.
because I mean, we think that
Do we really have to present a solution right now, though? I mean, I think we just have to have an idea, because sometimes solutions just come, like, with in the heat of passion. And right now we need to get passion. We can't just come up with a solution right now.
There's a lot of passion around
No,
what to
there's
do, but
not.
this
Exactly.
This
There's a lot of focus in communities and like in most places around the world to focus on how should we bring in this
Well, that's
education.
not enough. We need more. Passion doesn't mean just having a nice little fire in your stomach. It means really wanting something and needing it at this current moment in time. And it means doing anything to achieve it.
Alright,
Means
just
more
to
than
say to Ayan's question, I think it would be mostly focused at blue collar jobs because the government won't have that money to spend on higher education degrees such as, let's say, psychology, because they're expensive to fund professors. While if you have blue collar jobs, you can provide them with apprenticeships, which they have someone to train them and work a job at the same time.
So
it's
with this,
providing a job at the same time and everything, skills they need.
however, if someone wants to be a psychologist or wants to be like someone, wants to be in a job which requires more educational standard,
there should be a pathway for them.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. So if we just focus on a blue collar and white collar jobs, I think these would kind of be more ignored. As in the case right now, where most universities they just provide degrees and then they don't really care about your pursuit after
Can I
that.
just say, summarize everything we're trying to say? Basically, we're trying to say we need to stop being so systematic and everything. We need to start thinking more about morale and actual progress of people, That's what we're all trying to get at right now with the solutions
Yeah.
we're coming up with. We're trying to think about, like, solving stuff, not to just... We should stop being so focused on order and just... I don't know, this administrative stuff. We need to stop being so focused on this. So we need to just be focused on helping each other, and helping each other helps ourselves. And
The only thing with that is we saw that kind of approach with how President Biden's doing that. He spent $10 trillion in 100 days
Thing is,
in
the
office.
thought without
Doing what?
the thought without practicality is honestly.
it's not thought without practicality,
No,
but it's putting a thought
it was
somewhere
on-
with practicality.
Yeah, but that's never,
Where
where has that succeeded?
Well, exactly. People aren't doing it right. We need to. Well, it has succeeded in the AIDS thing. People put their thoughts in the right area, and they did something. Okay.
Yeah, but where are you gonna find those people again?
We're gonna find them to people who have passion, and we're inspiring this passion by telling them that it's possible.
I think there is a lot of passion, but everyone's misdirecting that passion. As we're saying, it's more leading towards protesting.
So you're saying it's impossible to solve this
No,
problem?
no, no. I think
definitely not impossible.
if you
So what's
can
the point?
harness these people's passions,
Let's
you
do
have
it
to
then.
remove them from the protest. Though everyone is thinking that protesting stop climate change is going to stop.
Exactly.
Something. It's not. You have to do something. You have to be practical.
Exactly.
So that I think with passion, everyone has the passion. I can see
Everyone
there's
has
a
the
lot of passion. It's just we have to somehow direct that passion into something useful.
Exactly. Let's
And
do that
that's-
then. Education. No, we can. This can be done through just, I don't know. The solution, we can't come up with it now, but
Yeah, and I think that's the government's role, is to direct that passion into leading our society into a better one.
So our current argument will be whether or not we should focus on bringing more passion and bringing more having a good direction for everyone. Okay,
Yeah.
Whether the government should focus on directing everyone towards a standard, towards their preferred standard of education, or should they focus on bringing in more jobs in order, in a more political standpoint, bringing more economic flow
yeah.
to support their stand as a country.
We need to put and inject more ethics in this system. Thank you very much.